Hello everyone, welcome to our weekly Topxana video series on geopolitical developments in different parts of the globe that also concerns the South Caucasus. I am Mahammad Mammadov, a research fellow at Topchubashov Center, and Ulvi Gitaliyev is a research intern, and here his research topic is Indian outreach to the South Caucasus and its implications for broader economic and security situation in the region. Today we discuss apparently Pakistani and Indian presence in the South Caucasus. As you know, recently after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, South Caucasus has been exposed to geopolitical developments in different regions, especially the Middle East, Central Asia and South Asia even. So therefore we thought that it will be very interesting to discuss Indian and Pakistani outreach. So let's start with visits. Recently we have flurry of visits from both sides. Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif was in Baku in late February. There were serious issues discussed between him and President Aliyev, and now we have expected visit of President Aliyev to Pakistan soon in April. And also Armenian Foreign Minister was in India. So like Sherlock Holmes' famous question, what do you make of that?
So I will say it is indeed the case that there have been a lot of visits on both sides. And I think what's most important, of course, about visits are the results. So in terms of the Pakistan Prime Minister's visit to Azerbaijan, a lot of memorandums were signed, a lot of documents, trade deals were signed. So one of the most interesting ones for us here in our research is that Azerbaijan will be investing $2 billion into the Pakistani economy through investing into Pakistani gas pipelines and other sectors. And of course, Pakistan also has some investments in Azerbaijan in terms of agricultural products, pharmaceutical products, construction materials. So most likely these will continue to increase after the visit. And of course, when the Armenian Prime Minister visits India, they also have expectations of weapon sales. And in terms of, for them at least, there's not as much natural gas or oil exploration because Armenia doesn't have access to those resources.
Yeah, I remember he said that the weapon purchases from India will not be used against third countries. Okay, however, weird that sounds, but I think the message was to Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan says that the growing arms race with Armenia can threaten regional security. Just a quick question, Byline. What do you make of increasing Azerbaijani-Pakistani contacts on trade and investment? Can it lead to any substantial increase? Because when we talk about Azerbaijan's relations with Pakistan and India, although Pakistan is the closest partner, whether during the Second Karabakh War, military realm, but in the economic realm, we see that Pakistan loses to India. So what do you make of that? Will it lead to substantial increase so that we can see some sort of parity, or it's just a continuation? Again, in the political and military realm, there is a strategic partnership almost, but in economic realm, we see like 20-25 million dollars of total trade. So do you think it will increase substantially? Or?
So before I answer your specific question, I'll expand a little bit, because politics does not just exist between two countries. It tries to be global. And so after visiting Azerbaijan, of course, the Pakistani Prime Minister went to Uzbekistan and signed some trade deals there as well. And one of the most interesting ones is that they're trying to get a trade corridor from Pakistan to Afghanistan into Central Asia, including Uzbekistan. So it's clear that Pakistan is interested in trade, not just with Azerbaijan, but with all the post-Soviet space countries, including Uzbekistan, Central Asia, Russia. And so from my point of view, Pakistan is trying to diversify its economic portfolio. And one of those is Azerbaijan, one of those is Central Asia. So I think Pakistan is hoping to achieve an increase in bilateral trade, increase in exports and imports. Will it be successful? Of course, we cannot say yet. But I think Azerbaijan investment into Pakistan, that will most likely happen in April when President Aliyev is visiting Islamabad. I think that will be the real test. If those investments are practical and they will happen quickly, then I think yes, there is a serious discussion of Pakistani-Azerbaijani trade. If they will take a long time and there will be delays and disagreements, then unfortunately our partnership with Pakistan will mostly stay in terms of the diplomatic and military realm rather than economic.
Yeah. As you brought Uzbekistan up, let's focus a little bit more in detail on that, because that's part of the North-South connectivity. Pakistan right now, we see that is kind of competing with India, as India sees this international North-South corridor as part of its strategy to bypass Chinese, Pakistani, this Gwadar port plan. So recently we see that Indians have stepped up efforts to reach out those countries, both you can talk about the different routes within the North-South corridor, but Central Asia, Iran, and through the South Caucasus. So, are there any, let's say, practical solutions for Pakistan to reach out to these new markets so that they compete with India? Or, what is the situation with a Pakistani and Indian approach to the North-South corridor?
Now, this is a very difficult conversation indeed, because a lot of agreements are signed, and then we see over the years that some of those agreements are not realized in terms of trade corridors, infrastructure investments. I will say that when it comes to the North-South corridor, India sees two ways, the Central Asian route and the Caucasus route. Both have to go through Iran. So the first step is Indian-Iranian infrastructure. The next step is that from Iran, it either goes through Azerbaijan, from Azerbaijan to Russia, or it goes from Iran through Turkmenistan and then Kazakhstan, exactly, yes. So which one will be realized? Both are there's construction going on both ways. So I'm sure people have heard about construction of railways from Iran to Azerbaijan, and they're also working on railways from Kazakhstan to Iran as well. So from my point of view, India is doing this because, of course, you try to not put all your eggs in one basket. You try to diversify your trade routes, not have monopolies. So I think it makes sense from them. But of course, the main problem is that Iran itself can also be a very unreliable partner, politically sanctioned. And it's their only choice. If you look at a map, the only other way Indian goods can go through railways, not through sea lanes, to Caucasus and to Central Asia, is through Pakistan. And that's the whole reason why they're trying to build the corridor, is to not go through Pakistan. So maybe in the future, if Azerbaijan and Pakistan can build a corridor, hypothetically, India can use it, but I don't think that's realistic for now.
Well, what about Pakistan? Do they have, there are recently this, again, Uzbekistan, they have this Trans-Afghan railway. And,
exactly.
Are there any feasibility? Do you think that that project is viable so that Pakistan can rely on it to reach have access to Central Asia and alternative markets, or?
So to answer that question, we have to look at Afghanistan, and of course, ever since the US withdrawal and the rise of the Taliban, there's a new government, which is very different. It has had some unstable relations with Iran, for example. It's had some conflicts with neighbors in Central Asia. But at least for now, the Taliban is trying to show itself as a legitimate government, as a stable government. And so it's in its interest to get these trade deals and connections done, because if Pakistan has to use Afghan railways and Afghan roads to get its goods into Central Asia, that means that they are more interested in a stable Afghanistan as opposed to a destabilized Afghanistan. So right now, there are some negotiations, discussions, memorandums between Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan about railways and infrastructure. It will take us a few years to see the viability and feasibility of these. But I think Pakistan is very serious about it. I know that Afghanistan is trying to show itself as a stable government. And I don't know as much about Uzbekistan's intentions, but I think it also serves their interests to diversify their markets away from Russia, to have access to markets in South Asia as well.
Yeah, definitely, because Uzbekistan is one of the few double landlocked countries. So they do not have, as you said, much options. And okay, tell me about gas and oil. recently we see that Azerbaijan is reaching out to, Pakistan, selling gas, LNG stuff. Yeah, we have, and India. Maybe you can tell us how Russia's invasion and its growing dependence on India for oil sales affected Azerbaijan's oil partnership with India, because as you know, the chunk of Azerbaijan-India trade, which is sometimes close to $2 billion, is oil exports. So what do you make of it? What is the place of oil and gas in Azerbaijan's relations with India and Pakistan?
Yeah, I mean, this was actually the topic that I wrote all the way back in university about. So in the beginning, I should not say in the beginning, but yeah, right now, as you said, it's correct that oil and gas is one of the main pillars of Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and India relations. So the invasion of Ukraine led to Russia having most of its markets abandon it, especially the European and American markets. So it had to turn to Indian, Chinese, and other markets for its oil and gas. And of course, it had to sell it for a cheaper price as well, because those countries know that it has limited options. So this has led an opportunity for Azerbaijan in terms of both getting Russian oil and gas to India, and at the same time exporting our own as well to these countries. And I think Azerbaijan is trying to use the opportunity as well, while also simultaneously sending some of our gas to Europe, for example, to replace the Russian gas that's been sanctioned. And I think in the future, depending on where these relations go, the oil and gas aspect of Azerbaijan, India, Pakistan relations could expand or shrink. Because of course, if you do follow a lot of the more like nitty-gritty, the local politics, there's a lot of investment forums and economic forums between India and Azerbaijan where they're discussing everything from clothes, food, construction materials, right? So trying to expand that non-oil and gas sector of negotiations.
And Indian companies are expanding their presence in Azeri, Trag, Güneşli, and they're sharing the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline.
Yes.
So that may maybe indicate their growing interest in some closer relation with Azerbaijan. I mean, that's kind of the argument is that in relations with difficult partners, Iran and India, Azerbaijani strategy is that to engage them in transport and energy issues, that so you keep the channels open, even if these countries sometimes openly take anti-Azerbaijani stance and support Armenia. So the argument is that Azerbaijan keeps this mutual interdependence on transport and energy issues to keep the relations on pragmatic rails. And I think the last and most interesting issue on this topic is military defense partnerships. We see that crystallization, almost, I think it would not be wrong to call it like that, of military partnerships between Pakistan and Azerbaijan on the one hand, and India and Armenia on the other. So any updates on that? And implications for regional security?
Oh, of course, there are so many. So the first one that I'll mention is that Azerbaijan has been buying some Pakistani jet fighters that have been co-made with China and Pakistan. And of course, you know, when it comes to air power in our region, especially in the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War, fighter jets were not used nearly as much, because both sides have pretty good air defense systems. So instead, drones were used, which are much cheaper, almost in a kamikaze setting. So it's interesting that Azerbaijan is still trying to develop and buy new fighter jets as well to keep, you know, superiority in the air for future conflicts. And of course, when it comes to Armenia and India trade, they had bought some Swati
radars.
Yes, exactly, radars. And these were radars that were specifically made for mountain warfare, which of course Nagorno-Karabakh, very mountainous area. So it makes sense from Armenia's perspective that they're buying materials that are suited for the environment. And something interesting that I read recently as well is that those weapons that were bought, they were bought before the beginning of the Second Karabakh War. And many of them were not even delivered. And as far as I know, none of them were used during the Second Karabakh War. So that was very interesting that they have not had a chance to be tested in a major way, at least yet. So one of the most interesting things that you mentioned earlier, right, was that Armenia claims that they will not use these weapons offensively. So at least as far as I know, so far that is correct. They have not had the opportunity to be able to use. So I think for India, this is good because this is their first ever weapon sales and exports to another country. So they're getting to sell these weapons and show to other countries that see, like countries that are in wars and have experience fighting wars, they prefer our weapons to weapons from Russia, Poland, other countries. And then, of course, it's good for Armenia because they're trying to get weapons suited for this climate. And of course, they're also trying to diversify their weapon sales away from Russia as much as they can. And it will be interesting to see if this weapon partnership develops, because one of the other questions is, will India find other trade partners as well? Will they start selling weapons to African countries, to other countries in Asia? If so, maybe they will not be as interested as selling to Armenia anymore, because they will say, okay, you know, Armenia is a very small country and we have
small market,
much bigger military markets that we could be selling to in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Some people argue that I saw the rationale behind the Indian arms sales to Armenia also, I mean, do not only come to its, let's say, balance of power lens. It sees Azerbaijan and Armenia, Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and India as India, Armenia, but also this interest, economic interest of the military industry, that they see Armenia as the first export country that they can make money. And at the same time, as all military exporters, starters, India may see that Armenian use of those weapons can give Indians some data that if their weapons work or not. That's good. As Iranians saw in the Ukraine war, their drones and other military supplies worked. So it's very large and big topic, and I think maybe we can have a second part on this, but today we have to stop, unfortunately, here. I hope it was insightful and interesting for watchers. Ulvi, thank you for your time.
Of course.
And thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.